Egypt condemns attack on Saudi embassy and the consulate in Iran. And preparations for the third meeting of the Egyptian-Saudi Coordination Council kick off in Riyadh. The leading story of the day: Saudi Arabia broke off diplomatic ties with Iran after protesters ransacked its embassy in Tehran to protest the execution of a cleric who was charged with terrorism in the kingdom. The Saudi Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubeir made the announcement at a news conference in Riyadh and said that Iranian diplomats had 48 hours to leave the kingdom. Details follow.
Saudi Arabia broke off diplomatic ties with Iran after protesters ransacked its embassy in Tehran to protest the execution of a Shiite cleric who was charged with terrorism in the kingdom. Saudi Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubeir made the announcement at a news conference in Riyadh and said that Iranian diplomats had 48 hours to leave the kingdom. Jubeir said that Saudi Arabia is breaking off diplomatic ties with Iran and requests that all members of the Iranian diplomatic mission leave within 48 hours. He said that Iran's history is full of negative interference and hostility in Arab issues, and it is always accompanied by destruction, accusing Tehran of seeking to destabilize the region. Earlier, a mob attacked the Saudi embassy in Tehran and a consulate in the second city of Mashhad amid protest at Nimr's execution. Jubeir said that Saudi authorities had asked their Iranian counterparts to ensure security at the embassy, but they did not cooperate and failed to protect it. Nimr, 56 years old, was put to death along with 46 other people who were involved in attacks that killed dozens in 2003 and 2004. Jubeir said that those executed had received fair and transparent trials and were convicted of carrying out terrorist operations that led to the deaths of innocents. Iran has said that it arrested 44 people over the embassy attacks, and Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said that the demonstrators were radicals and the assaults totally unjustifiable.
Bahrain said on Monday it is severing diplomatic ties with Iran a day after a similar decision by Saudi Arabia amid escalating tensions over the execution of a cleric. The state news agency said Manama ordered Tehran's diplomats in the Gulf state to leave the kingdom within 48 hours. United Arab Emirates announced on Monday it was downgrading diplomatic ties with Iran and limiting the number of the Iranian diplomats in the country. An official statement said that the United Arab Emirates has reduced the level of diplomatic representation with Iran to the level of the chargé d'affaires and reduced the number of Iranian diplomats in the country. Egypt condemned an attack on the Saudi embassy in Tehran and its consulate in the city. The statement by the Foreign Ministry stressed the importance of respecting the premises of diplomatic missions and guaranteeing the safety of their employees, as stipulated by the Vienna Agreement on Diplomatic Relations. Al-Azhar also condemned the attack on the Saudi embassy and consulate in Iran, reiterating support for the kingdom and calling for not interfering in Saudi internal affairs. Russia is ready to act as an intermediary to help settle the dispute between Iran and Saudi Arabia. The Russian news agency reported that Russian offer of mediation on Monday, citing the foreign ministry source, with sources adding that Moscow will play the intermediary role if it is demanded. The source said that Russia would work the existing contradictions and any new ones that arise between these two countries. And blast rocked two mosques in central Iraq on Monday amid fears of renewed strife following the Saudi Arabia's execution of Nimr, the prominent cleric who was charged with terrorism. Groups of men wearing uniforms detonated explosives at two mosques overnight in the Hilla region south of Baghdad. In Hilla, about 80 kilometers south of the capital, a police officer said that Ammar bin Yasir Mosque in the neighborhood nearby was bombed after midnight. Al-Fatah Mosque, also in the village called Sinjar, just outside of Hilla, was also damaged in similar circumstances. The execution at the weekend in Saudi Arabia of Nimr outrage in Iraq. The protests took place in Baghdad and elsewhere in the country. Another demonstration called by the prominent cleric and the militia leader Muqtada Sadr was due to be held later on Monday. And the law enforcement forces in the second and third, supported by the air forces and police, carried out a search operation and raids against terrorists in the middle and north of Sinai. 29 terrorists were killed in exchange of fire during operations in Al Arish and Sheikh Suwaid and Rafah, as well as a number of the mountainous areas in the middle of Sinai. 4 others were arrested in search operations. The illegal weapons, explosives, and a number of vehicles and drugs were seized in those operations. The raids in Sinai are part of the second stage of the retribution for the Martyr operation. Prime Minister Sharif Ismail met on Monday with the assistant to the UN chief, Philippe Douste-Blazy. The former French minister is a candidate to take the post of the head of the World Health Organization, the WHO. Welcomed Blazy's candidacy in light of the strong Egyptian-French relations. The Prime Minister said that Egypt is looking forward to a more active role in the WHO, taking into consideration its expertise in the medical field. And preparation for the third meeting of the Egyptian-Saudi Coordination Council kicked off in Riyadh on Monday. During the preparatory meetings, ministers from both countries discussed bilateral relations and what has been agreed on in the previous meetings. The Joint Council said in a statement that Egypt and Saudi Arabia are keen to boost bilateral relations in a way that would serve interests of the two countries. The Egyptian delegation includes Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri, Minister of Cooperation Sahar Nasr, Minister of Education Al-Hilal Al-Shirbini, and Minister of Housing Mustafa Madbouli. And Dubara Palace Church witnessed on Monday Christmas celebrations of the angelic sect in the presence of the presidency representative. During the celebrations, a Christmas mass was held. To Yemen.